With the World Cup being hosted in Qatar, this is something many people have said. There's a lot of hypocrisy that goes around. People always imagine or try to say that sports can unite people and no politics, but there's always politics in everything. The World Cup, the logic of it deals with the nation state, and that's politics already. You can't get away from it. And then whenever something is done in a space outside of Western Europe or the United States, we always hear criticism about this and criticism about that. Now it's about Qatar, and it's sort of their own, some of the Islamic values against sexuality, against, certain types of expressions of individualism, these sorts of things. And there's a double standard, and everybody knows this, because when the Olympics or the World Cup is being held in the United States, who's going to bring up the displacement and dispossession of the Native Americans? Who's going to bring up the treatment of African Americans and the slave trade, North Atlantic slave trade? Who's going to bring up Nagasaki and Hiroshima? Who's going to bring up all this? We could keep going. There's so many things. So it's like, please, or let's go to the European nations and their colonialism, right? Like there was, we can look at the map in the 1880s and there's only a few colors on there because at one point the European colonial nations or empires had dominated most of the world. If we want to open that bag, we can open that bag. We can go there, but it's not going to be pretty because most of the nations that are putting on airs when they criticize other nations, and there's not to say that there's not room for critique. There's definitely room for critique, but who's being put on a pedestal where they're beyond critique and who's under the radar or who's under the microscope, who's being held to account? A lot of hypocrisy going on. We have a saying, people who live in glass houses shouldn't throw stones. And that's not to say that, again, there aren't valid critiques of Qatar and certain things, especially the labor policies and all this sort of stuff. But when it comes from European nations, the United States, that act as if they're the standard of morality and standard of enlightenment and human rights, come on.